So the beginning the teaching, as usual, all of us try to set up the proper intentions, taking refuge to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, and generating bodhicitta. Uh, so mainly, we receiving this teaching. It's not just for benefit oneself. It's mainly to benefit all sentient beings. So, in order to benefit other beings, one of the best way to help the being is if you achieve the enlightenment Buddhahood, and you can able to help to all other beings directly. So that's why you listening this teaching, you practice finally to purify all your negative emotion to achieve the enlightenment. Through that you can help to all beings. That's why we are taking these teachings. So at least some kind of that kind of intention. It's important. So I'm going to recite maybe one standard 3 is taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. So that's why during that time, all of us meditate on bodhicitta. Daji chudan soji chunan la chanchu pato tani japsu chi daji chuchi ji bie sonam ji chola penje sanje tu bashu sanje chudan soji chunan la chanchu pato tani japsu chi daji chuchi ji bie sonam ji chola penje sanje tu bashu sanje chudan soji chunan la chanchu pato tani japsu chi daji chuchi ji bie sonam ji chola penje sanje tu bashu. Now the last, I think we all discuss on among the Four Noble Truths, the truth of suffering. We already talked about that. Around among the suffering, the truth of suffering, of course, they have 8 different types of suffering, according in the Lamrim, 6 different types of suffering, 3 different types of suffering. So majorly, we talk about the 3 different types of suffering, which are the suffering of suffering, changing suffering, pervasive suffering. And among these 3, the pervasive suffering, to understanding the pervasive suffering as a suffering, that's, I think, more important. And as long as if you're knowing more about the pervasive suffering, that helps you to understanding the disadvantages of one's own negative thoughts, emotions, and negative karma, which are the main causes of sufferings. When you're knowing the disadvantages of those negative emotions, negative karma, and it helps you to generate the wish to get rid of these emotions, how to, wish to free from them. So that's why it helps to develop the renunciation. So that's why the first important to understanding these 3 different types of suffering as a suffering. So the suffering of suffering is easy. The suffering of changing is difficult to understand as a suffering. So most of the people here, we never think suffering is the suffering of changing as a suffering. Most of the people think the suffering of changing as a pleasure, the happiness. So they always try to achieve that. They spend so much time and the energy to achieve suffering of changing, which is the mundane pleasure, it's called contaminated pleasures. So the contaminated pleasures or the mundane pleasures, which are, it's just for the short term looks like a happiness, so the pleasure, but they never stay that. It's always, turn into the suffering. So that's why as long as when you know these are the part of the suffering, it helps so much to reduce our attachments. We're so much attached to those mundane pleasure. Because of that, the attachments creates us, the negative karma. So that's why we accumulate so much negative karma. That's why we suffer. It's the major our problem, and also not only from the negative karma side. Even today in this life, the present life, our depressions, or the fear we have, the worry we have, the stress, the major of our inner pains and sufferings come from our attachments. We have so many the attachments, on the material life. So that's why it brings us so much worry, so much depression, so much fear. So all those inner pains we're experiencing in this current life because of the attachments we have. So as long as if you're knowing the attachment that we have is most of those attachments to attach to the mundane pleasure, which is the suffering of changing. So if you know these mundane pleasures are part of suffering, these are not the really happiness. These are not the really pure happiness. If you really know through your heart, then it really helps to control the attachments you have toward this material world. So that's why it's important to understand the suffering of changing as a suffering. So we already talked this in the last class, so I don't need to go more again and again. And then the pervasive suffering, I mentioned earlier, the suffering of living under the influence of negative emotions and contaminated karma. So the person who live under the influence of these two causes, they never, ever, ever experiencing peace, happiness. So all this suffering today we have is because we are living under the influence of negative emotions and contaminated karma. So we stuck into the samsara by negative emotions, specific our attachments. So the attachments and the negative emotion, the craving, the craving and the attachment or grasping, these are the mind who tied us into the mundane, into the samsara and the suffering of cycle existence. That's why we're circling in samsara because of our mind is the tied by those attachments, and craving and grasping and so forth. So as long as the person's, we are in the trap, right? In the trap, so by those negative emotions. As long as if you're living in that kind of life, always are the problems there. Always experiencing this suffering. Never ever achieve the ultimate peace and happiness. So the point is, if we really knows about that and to understanding, so living under the influence of those mental affliction, it's really we are stuck into the mud. So that we are stuck into the mud, then it's always dirty. It's always contaminated by those muds. So then, if you know that, we are circling in samsara. If you know about these things, then we will going to research why we are circling in samsara. Why, where, what are the causes? So first, to understanding the circling in samsara is the part of suffering. So when you really know about all this suffering of the samsaras and all this, when you know that as a suffering, it helps us to feel, from deep of our heart, it's help us to feel, wish to free from them, wish to stay away from them, so wish to get rid of them. So I mentioned earlier the purpose of the Four Noble Truths. There are many different purposes. One of the main purposes of to study on Four Noble Truths or meditation on Four Noble Truths is to generate the renunciation. That's the one main purpose. So that to generate renunciation, which means it's not about outside something there. The renunciation is the mind, the vicious, the mind who's seeking oneself to achieve the freedom of samsara, the freedom of suffering of cycle existence. Another word, the freedom of mental afflictions and contaminated karma. The person he or she, when the mind is really wish, seeking to achieve the freedom of one's own negative thoughts and emotions, if you have a very strong wishes, then all your decisions, your actions, where you're using the time, all of them is for that achievement, to achieve that. So renunciation is the one, the main, the mind who really help us to engage to the serious practitioner, to engage to becoming very serious practitioner, to help us engage to the practice very seriously, very strongly from deep of your heart. So that's, as a practitioner, renunciation is the first, the fundamental, very important. We need the qualities, very important things to engage to the Dharma. So that's why in order to renounce these things, I mentioned earlier, first important to understanding the pervasive suffering as a suffering. So when today, most of us, we think when we suffer, the majority of the people think we suffer because of the business, because of the family, because of the circumstances outside there, or the other people, or system, or something. We're always looking out there. We suffer because of this, out there, pointing out. So that's why we always try to fight out there. So complaining, criticizing, the fighting, the accusing. So it's endless of the problem we are living, because we're pointing always out there. And these are not the really main causes. These are not really the causes of our suffering, but our ignorance, so don't understanding that. So when you're knowing about all this, specific the pervasive suffering and all these things, then you will going to point in there. I suffer because of my mental affliction, my negative karma. So that's why the Four Noble Truths, first understanding the suffering, then second, the second is the origin of suffering. So why I'm suffering in samsara? So why I'm experiencing this suffering of changing? Why we experience this suffering of suffering? So the suffering of suffering I mentioned earlier, changing suffering, which also mundane pleasures. So even these are the mundane pleasure, but when we used it, when we achieve that, these pleasures no more as a pleasure. It's all of them will slowly turn into the suffering. So why all these things are turning into the suffering? Then pervasive suffering, right? Mentioned why we suffering in samsara. When you go deep down, all those pleasures we're experiencing today, it comes from one of the fundamental causes is our negative emotion, the self-centered, the mind of ego grasping, the attachments, craving, grasping. All these negative emotions are one of the fundamental causes of all those mundane pleasure we're experiencing. So if the causes is negative, causes are the negative, of course the result will be. So can you keep this mic mute? Somebody just on. Can you keep the mic mute? Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So that's why if the causes are there's still some mics are still on. Could you please keep your mic mute? I can hear this small baby talking. So if the causes are contaminated, not pure, the result, of course, the cause and effect of relationship is the nature. If causes is good, result is good. If causes is bad, then result is the bad, right? So that's the nature. That's the, like when you plant the apple seeds, it's always brings the apple tree. It never brings the banana tree or orange trees and other trees. It doesn't matter how much and how many prayer you do, how many blessing or holy water you put it on their seeds, that never brings other tree. It always brings the whatever the causes is. If the apple seed, the apple trees they bring it. That's the nature. That's the natural relationship. It's not what he created. It's just nature. So that's why we use through that. And when we say, "Oh, I'm suffering this or that," all these things because of the causes. Now, when you look, what are the fundamental causes? So the major way chief here, all this mundane, materialistic, the material we got it, you can see is the fundamental causes is either they are very much involved with the self-centered. There's very much involved with the attachments, the greedies, graspings or craving, and so many. So I need that, I need this, I need this. So all these things, that they are one of the fundamental causes, this negative emotions. So because of that, of course, then if the fundamental cause is negative, then people behave with action to try to get these things when we got it out of attachment, out of craving. So all these things, the fundamental cause is not good. So that's why when even the result we got, at first you're experiencing joy or whatever, exciting, but it's no longer there. It will slowly, slowly, slowly turn into the suffering. So it never stays that way. If these are the real happiness, then when we first got it, 100% satisfaction. When you use more and more, you have to be more happier. And those mundane pleasures not like that. When you first got it, of course, there's lots of excitement, joy, but at the same time, behind in your brain, there's some kind of worry, some kind of, or the fear or worry. It always comes. Then after, when you use more, then it creates more other problems. Stress and worry, depression, and so all the emotion will be changed. You'll see when you first, when you got the expensive car. So first you're very exciting, but at the same time, you have to worry about the insurance. You have to worry about the gas. So there's all these things comes out. And as long as when you use more, it's to the more happier, it slowly is making more problems, right? Yeah. So even when you park there, you worry about somebody will scratch that, somebody will going to steal that. So all these things because of that car. So we can see this is not the really pure, 100% pure happiness. So that's why you can see when you got it, same time that gives you some kind of worries there. So that's why these are not pure happiness, why we are not able to experiencing those pure happiness, because the causes are not pure, 100% pure. The causes are not really 100% positive. So there's so much the negative emotion, there are negative causes are involved there. So that's why it never ever comes that kind of pure joy there. So that's why what are the causes of those suffering? Why we suffer? We're thinking always when we suffer, we pointed out, I mentioned earlier, why we suffer this. The fundamental thing is because we have selfish, we have attachments, we have greedies, we have jealousy, anger, hatred, arrogance, so many negative thoughts, emotions. As long as if we live under the influence of those negative thoughts, emotions, always our actions become contaminated. It never ever comes pure positive, 100% pure positive actions. Because the action we acted is based on human mind. So we think, then we act. So the actions are based on our mind. So if this mind is something negative, contaminated, impure, then actions always comes that way. So that's why we're accumulating contaminated action by contaminated mind, the impure, the negative minds. So when you act that, then results always contaminated, always suffering. So the simple thing is our action we can see human being as a human nature, nobody wants to show wrathful face. Nobody wants to show ugly face. Everybody wants to show beautiful. Everybody wants to say nice things. That's human nature. It's very positive. But do humans always showing peaceful face? Do they always act peaceful? Not. The many of them act so much negative, the violent, but they don't want that act because the reason is how we know they don't want, because the nature of human, we always try to show nice. There are many people who spend so much money, who spend so much time to try to make this face beautiful. So we put so much color, so many different colors, and put it on our face and try to show beautiful. Sometimes I'm joking, but sometimes maybe this real. So our face sometimes it's become very expensive face. Spend so much money, so much time to try to make a beautiful faces. So these beautiful faces, who destroyer? Who destroying this beautiful, expensive face? It's one's own anger, one's own hatred. So as long as when you're angry, when you hate it, you can see this expensive, beautiful face turn into very ugly, scary, violent face. So the scary, violent, ugly face turned by one's own anger. Nobody. The individual wants to show this ugly face. If he or she wants to show that, then why they spend so much money? Why they spend so much time to make this beautiful? Clear, the individual don't want to show that. Then why his face is turned into ugly, scary, the violent face? Because of the mind the person who has is turned into anger, hatred. When the mind is turning into anger and hatred, you can see the faces are turned into very negative, very scary, right? Very ugly faces. Ugly faces like that, ugly and beautiful is not about something like a physical what you put it. The point is, ugly means this face when they turn into very violent, wrathful face, people scared. People are scared to see this. Whoever saw these faces, they're scared. So that's called the ugly faces. So that scary, wrathful face turned by one's own anger. So you can see, do human wants to that? Not. But it's showing there because of this negative emotion. So that speech, everything, do they wants to show, use the very violent speech or nobody wants. So, but they're saying all those, harsh words, the lying and screaming, all those bad things, they're using those action because their mind is something wrong there. So nobody say horrible, bad, harsh word without anger, without negative emotion. So when they feel negative, then your speech is completely turned into negative. So action, where we people act negative, because of that, the first result is, of course, it can make oneself very uncomfortable. That negative emotion arises. You can see the first result is it will destroy one's own peace of mind. So it's impossible to live with anger and peace. As long as when you're angry, you don't have peace in your mind, right? So nobody say, oh, I'm angry, I'm very happy. Impossible. So we can see this negative emotion when they arise. First, they destroy one's own peace and happiness. Then its effect to your physical behavior, action. So your speech, your action, everything turn into violent. So when you act violent, the negative, then the result of this action negative is destroying one's own dignities, one's own values, everything destroyed. then it's not only that, it can affect your relationship, your friend, every family's relationship, every destroyer by uh, uh, those violent. So those the violent actions that people, uh, because of these uh, uh, negative emotions. So we see those the negative action, how much is destroyed even in this life, it's destroying everything. And not only one side, it can family, in society, community, everywhere. So this problem it creates by one's own negative emotions and the negative actions. So negative emotions and negative actions are the fundamental causes of all this suffering we're experiencing. The families, the small families, the family drama, the family problems, it's come from the families. They're fighting each other, they're screaming each other, they're saying bad things each other, then eat it up. They're not happy. They're not happy family because of the act violence. So do they want to act violent? Of course, nobody. The majority of the family together, they stay together as a couple, is their decision. And the purpose of their staying together is happiness. Nobody has intention to purpose of leaving the couple is for fighting, is for suffering. Nobody. But everybody has the intentions to living, staying together is peace, happiness, harmony, joyfulness. That's the purpose. But do they really live that way? Of course, not everybody. There are many of them not live that way. There's so much violence. There's so much family dramas. There's so much family fighting. But the many things they have to go these things here and there. So because of this, what do you call the problem we engaging? It's because of the action the human acted. So the couple, do they really want to live with violence? Not, right? But they are experiencing so much this uh, uh, the suffering within the family, and those major suffering created by their family themselves. And the family, do they want to? They don't want. Both of them don't want to live that way. So why this doing? It's because of the violent action they act. Why they act the violent action? Because the mind has too much negative. So living with a negative emotion, then violent, then really they're experiencing sufferings. Similarly, like a nations, the war, so all of them are same reason. So it is saying like more than 7 billion humans living in this planet, and nobody wants suffering. All those 7 billion human beings wants to live happy, wants to live in a joyfulness life, happy pleasure life. Nobody wants to live suffering. But the majority, most of them, experiencing suffering. Their life is too much problem. They're experiencing suffering. And most of those suffering created by human beings. It's not from outside the aliens or different planets. It's not come from there. It's the human being. We are the people who create this suffering. We are the people who are experiencing this suffering. We are the people. Nobody wants to experiencing this suffering. Then why? Why we experience that? Why we create that? Because of our negative emotion. So because of living with this negative emotion, our actions always violent, negative. That's why we act violent, negative. That's why we suffer. So one of the best way to clean these suffering, to purify these sufferings, we have to clean our negative actions. In order, we have to avoid those negative actions. In order to avoid those negative actions, we have to avoid those negative minds who create all those actions. So that's why the negative emotions, the negative actions are the fundamental causes, the origin of suffering, the truth of origin of suffering, which called second noble truth. So the second noble truth is very important to understand. So as a practitioner, specific, as a Dharma practitioner, first very important thing is make sure you know your negative emotions are the fundamental causes of suffering. Your negative actions are the fundamental causes of suffering. So do we really know that? Do you really know your anger are the fundamental causes of suffering? The many people, they don't know that much. They know by brain, but they not knowing by their heart. The important thing is you have to know by your heart. Make sure, do you really know your negative emotions are the fundamental causes of suffering? As long as if you don't know that about that, then always your practice never success. Never ever becoming, true practitioner. Doesn't matter your physically, you can memorize, hundreds of different types of prayers or the, rituals, or very good to use those symbols and the tunes and the rituals and dance or whatever. As long as if you're really not understanding the fundamental causes suffer because of your negative emotion, if you don't know that, then all these external things are just external. It's sometimes, beautiful things we pray with the different tunes, with a very, a setup that very much too much emphasis on external, everything's make me beautiful, but without investigating internal, then I usually it looks like a what do you call it's like a drama, it's like just you're doing a drama. Sometimes it's called what we call a Dharma concert. We have a concert. It's sing a song, nice things like that. It's just beautiful, nice, sing a song like that. It's nice, neat, but nothing any effect to internal. Supposed to be Dharma. It's supposed to be, the purpose of the Dharma. It's the main. The Dharma is cessation of suffering and the truth parts. Third and fourth noble truth. Real Dharma is the cessation of suffering and the causes of suffering, and the truth path who leads into the that cessation. And these are the Dharma which is supposed to be, it's the part of your mind, it's the insight, it's the mental quality. It's not about the physical, it's the mental quality. So it's a freedom of one's own negative. So any practice we engage in, Dharma supposed to be help to reduce one's own mental afflictions. Dharma supposed to be helps to reduce one's own negative karma, negative habits, the negative emotions. That's the main point. It's like a medicine to cure the inner disease. And so to do that way, each individual, the practitioner, it or him or herself, we have to apply the Dharma within the mind, within the inside there. You need to apply that. It's not just only outside. It doesn't matter how many empowerment or what. If you just only physical things, then how much you try, it's never go in there. It's inside your mind is never moved, never change it. It's remain same things. As long as the mind remain same thing, then whatever you're doing, actually it's not really benefiting. It's not really doing here. It's not truly practitioner. So that's why to apply the Dharma internal within their mind, each practitioner, him or herself, fully understanding, the fundamental causes of suffering is one's own negative emotions. Everything you're doing is to reduce the negative emotion, to purify them, to eliminate them, to free from them. That's the main the purpose. So to apply on that level, so each individual first fully understanding, one's own negative emotions are the fundamental causes. So that all the suffering we are experiencing, instead of blaming to other people, rather if you're able to blame to one's own negative emotion. I suffer because of I have too much self-centered. I suffer because I hate these people. I angry to these people. I suffer because I have too much greedies. I suffer because I have too much attachment to the material world, to our to the power, to the money, to your own reputation, the fame. So everything, you suffer because of this negative emotion. If you really know that, if you really feel that, then there is a chance to generate renunciation. Then you will becoming truly practitioner, and all your practice you're doing is really, really helps you. It really helps inside. Otherwise, it's not. And sometimes, unfortunately, out of the dharma, the prayer, then instead of helping, instead of helping to reduce your negative emotion, sometimes it's increasing more negative emotion. So they are the people with the purpose of their prayer, the purpose of their practices, or to find a uh, good husband, to find a good wife, or to find my good children, or something about the mundane. Even the inviting the monks to do the prayer, it's supposed to be practice. It's the dharma practice, the prayer, but the intention is to success this business, to find this. It's all about the mundane things. There are many people think that way. As long as if you like that, it's everything you're doing is for the business, to success like this or that. That means it's not really truly practice. So that's what the people misunderstanding sometimes. As long as if you really don't understanding, without knowing those Four Noble Truths, without knowing the fundamental causes of suffering as one's own negative emotion, then even you engage the Dharma, you use the Dharma for material world. So even just simple prayer you're doing is for success in your business, or something just for material. So there are very rare people that are inviting you to do the prayer for reduce one's own anger, reduce one's own attachment. There are no requests like that. It's most just material thing. So you can see that. So that's why the lack of understanding the main purpose of the Dharma. So that's why the education of the Four Noble Truths, it's so important. It's not just an education only, but also for the practice, for experience that. So therefore, the looks one's own negative emotion, and always to meditate the disadvantages of negative emotions. Quite often, think about the disadvantages of one's own emotion, not the other people. Oh, my boss is very angry. That's his anger make this or that. Not only pointing there. He or she, whatever their anger, you can't change them. You have no power to get rid of his anger. You have no power to pick up his anger. It's only as you're criticizing, you're blaming, you're complaining. That's all. What you can do is you can control your negative emotion. You can reduce your anger. You can eliminate your anger, your hatred, your self-center. So you have a full power to remove your own negative emotion. You have a full power to transforming your mind from negative to positive. You have a full power to change your behavior from negative to positive. That you have, that you can do it. So rather go on that way, which is possible. Impossible things, just complaining, this thing is not achieve anything. Instead of that, makes you more, right? So therefore, look one's own negative emotion, the disadvantages of one's own negative emotion. Maybe there's still somebody keep their mic on. Could you please mute your mic so it's not disturb to other people? Yeah. Yes. So the negative emotions, like one's own anger, one's own hatred, always try to meditate the disadvantages of one's own anger, the hatred, the selfishness. oftenly, till you feel this is really, really something like a bothers you. Do you feel like like what you call disgust toward your own negative emotion? So you really want to stay away from them. You feel like, oh, because of those negative emotions, I suffer. So it's, just by natural, innate natural, to feel that way. And that's the very good, you know, uh, the practice to help to generate the renunciation. So the oftenly meditate on truth of suffering, it comes from my own negative action, my own negative emotion. Meditate again and again till you feel from deep of your heart, wish to get rid of this negative emotion. And sometimes you can test yourself, and it's good to test that way. So when you go to the doctor, clinic or hospital, and the doctor finds it out diagnosed or you have a life-threatening disease, as soon as when you hear, when you hear this word, the doctor say this, that moment you feel panicked, you feel very much worried. You're looking, what kind of medicine, which hospital, what kind of doctor I need. You really worry inside there, and that kind of fear you have, when they diagnose you have a life-threatening disease. So that's clear thing is you really don't like this disease. You really want to stay away from this disease. That's why you have fear about that. Then you go to the temple or the monastery or wherever spiritual place you go there, and then your spiritual leader or your teacher or somebody's diagnosed, you have an anger problem, you have a hatred problem, you have a selfish or attachment and greedy problem. When they say you have an anger problem, do you really feel that? You say, oh, who cares? Anger doesn't matter. Nothing change anything your heart. Nothing worry, no fear, doesn't matter. So that's clear. You don't care about your negative emotion because you don't understanding the disadvantages of those negative emotions. For you, physical disease or internal disease, your negative emotion disease, for you is more scare about physical instead of internal disease. So your education of the negative emotions is very little, very, very small, don't know that much. So that's why you don't have any care, you don't have any worry. So living like that kind of lifestyle, the serious practitioners, very hard to become a serious practitioner because the Dharma is supposed to be only the purpose of the purpose of the Dharma is to cure one's own negative emotion, to remove one's own negative emotion. That's why we engage in Dharma. That's why we call the Dharma is the medicine to cure one's own negative emotion. So if you don't have that much worry about having those negative emotions, if you don't have any fear to worry about to having one's own negative emotion, then engaging Dharma is, very difficult. So that's why sometimes people engaging Dharma is not for that reason. So that's why I'm saying it's for different reasons, for success business, for other things. It's going on completely different way. So that's the mistake people have is first, the mistake is because they don't understanding the disadvantage of negative emotion. From the Buddhist perspective, negative emotions not only the causes of the suffering we experiencing right now, these negative emotion can damage you, can destroy you, even in next and next and next life. Physical disease, physical problem, how bad, it's only destroy one life, this life. That's all, finish. It's not come from our next and next life. Negative emotion will continuously comes, damage this life, damage next life, next life, next life, next life, till you're free from those negative emotion, this negative emotion will make trouble. How much they bring us suffering, huge big suffering, but many people still don't understanding that. So that's why the lack of information about the negative emotion, the disadvantages of negative emotion. That's why we don't have that much information. Even sometimes people know that, but they never practice, they never meditate, they never think about this, they never research this again and again. That's why your heart still don't know that. Your brain maybe a little bit know, your heart still don't know that. As long as when your heart is not knowing these things, your heart never moved on that way. It's never moved. So that's why even engaging the Dharma, it's not becoming very strong and serious because of lack of understanding the truth of suffering, the original truth of suffering. So that's why it is, I think, so important to understanding. So, maybe first you can look in this life, how much the stress, the depressions you're feeling, the worry, the fear, like internal pains and suffering you have, measure these pains and suffering because of negative emotion. The reason is stress, or the depressions, or the fear, all those painful we have, inner pains, are part of your mind. Right? It's the mental experience, the part of your consciousness, the mind. The mind, which means, what is the mind? Mind is not the form. The mind is not some kind of what called external material. It's not the metal. It's the formless. It's the invisible, called the luminous. The luminous, the clear, this form, and it's functioning as knowing. So the definition of mind in Buddhist perspective is merely knowing and experiencing, or merely luminous and merely knowing or experiencing is the definition of mind. So as long as if they don't have form, they don't have color, they don't have shapes. Because of that, how strong fire can't burn your own consciousness, the mind. Never. Nobody can burn your mind. How sharp sword you have, you can't cut your mind and consciousness. It's the luminous, they don't have form. So who can able to harm to your mind? Physical material, how? Mind, they don't have any form. How can they harm? Even the fire, they can't burn it. So they can't cut it. So who can able to harm your mind is the consciousness. Mind can harm to mind. So whose mind can harm to your mind? Can other mind or other consciousness can harm to your mind directly? Of course not. Their consciousness or their mind is in their body. Your minds live always in your body. It's not outside. They're in your body. Other mind can't go into your body, right? Their angers, you can't go in there. So who can able to harm to you? Whose mind can able to harm to your mind? It's only your mind can harm to your mind. So which kind of your mind can harm to your mind? Or the mind who harms to your mind, that mind's called negative emotion, mental afflictions. That's why I call negative emotion. That's why I call it mental affliction, who disturb one's own peace of mind, who harms one's own mind. So when this mind is arising, that's why it bothers you. That's why it creates you depressed. That's why it creates you stress. That's why it creates you worry. As long as negative mind is not arising, your mind's always remain calm. So many people thinking we suffer because of material. It's all material things are just conditioned. Mainly, there's some kind of negative emotion arising. Like for instance, if you buy the very fancy car, you're very happy, and you park in your street. Then midnight, you're sleeping very smoothly, very happily, and somebody they steal your car. And that moment, are you experiencing fear or suffering? Not at all. You still sleep. Your car's gone. They always stole. Then tomorrow morning, when you go to work, then you come out, you see your car is not there anymore. Then you realize somebody steal your car. When you know that moment, it's beginning of angry or beginning of fear, beginning of very uncomfortable, depressed, or all those pain you experiencing after you know that. Before the material things are gone, all is stolen. As long as when your mind is not knowing, you still remain calm. You still remain joy there. As soon as when your mind is something changed, knowing that, that's when you know that it creates you anger. It creates you some kind of negative. But because of that, then you feel all those pains, all those suffering. So the internal fear, the worry, the depressions, the stress we experience is the fundamental causes is one's own negative emotion. As long as if you're free from those negative emotions, if you don't have any anger at all, so whatever people talk to you, whatever they say, whatever they've done, you never ever feel any stress. You never ever feel any fear. You feel these things because of the anger. It's like when you go to work, somebody say very bad things, whatever, because of that, when you feel frustration, when you feel fear, when you feel worry, those emotions, many people think I feel suffering because the guy who shouted me, who said, we only think that. But these other conditions, but these are not the really fundamental cause. The fundamental cause is the anger. The guy who shouts me, I feel very angry. That's why I experiencing pain. I experiencing suffering. Very uncomfortable. It's not about the guy, it's words. You can see how big pain you have, how much you suffer, how strong or heavy pain you have, depend on how much anger. So if I feel very much angry, that word can hurt you very badly. If you have a less anger, that harsh word can hurt you less. If you have no anger at all, that harsh word, nothing, not harms you at all. So how big or strong and heavy and light harm is based on how much anger arising, how strong and heavy and light anger arising. It's not about how bad word this guy use it. So you have to be very smart and think about yourself. The measure the pains and suffering we're experiencing it comes from our own mind. So we should first really research that, think again and again to make sure the understanding the troublemaker. Who is the troublemaker? The troublemaker is one's own negative emotion. So when you really know that, then cessation of suffering and the path next to truths. We're going to discuss that way. So this is so important to understanding all the problems, one's own negative thoughts, emotions. So we need to study, research, and not only study, research and experience. And because we always feel depression, stress, worry, so we always, feel angry and hatred, attachments. Those emotions comes often us. So you can see, you can experiment yourself and look carefully. All those pain you experience right now come from where? What are the main causes? Go much deeper. So then you will find it. Then point is understanding all those disadvantages of one's own negative thoughts, emotion. Through that, you're really desperate wants to get rid of this, not wants to stay with that. As long as if I am influenced by negative emotions, there's no longer peace. Never ever experiencing, ultimate peace, ultimate happiness. Doesn't matter wherever you go, wherever you stay. As long as negative emotion is there, always remain experiencing suffering. So through that, then when you feel that, and can we able to change those negative emotions? Is that possible? and says, of course, these are the possible. Negative thoughts, emotions are the temporary. These are called mental affliction or the wrong consciousness, the mistaken consciousness. So these are possible to remove. So, from the Buddhist perspective, the nature of mind is very pure. The nature of mind is very pure. The negative emotions are the temporarily. They just arise and they can disappear. The nature of skies is very pure. The clouds come and goes. As long as when those clouds comes there, they can make a thunderstorm. They can make all those problems, right? So, they are the nature of no. They can disappear. It comes and goes. So negative emotions are like that. As long as when they're arising, it make disturb. It make trouble. So when they are disappear, it makes you calms. But these negative emotions are curable. But the curable just is not. We have to use the logic. We have to use the reason, the logic to prove this negative emotion. We can fix it. We can remove it. This is not human nature. Human nature is not a negative emotion. So we first need to be full educate about the negative emotions, can change it, can remove it. That's process. When you know that, then cessation of suffering and comes next. So next time we'll talk about the other two truths. Then through that, we're going to discuss about the renunciation. Okay, we'll leave here now. It's already